Misha Kudryashev, scientist at the Max Planck Institute for Biophysics in Frankfurt on Main, Germany. Grew up in Krasnoyars, Siberia, where he studied physics. He then moved to the University of Heidelberg, where he did his PhD in malaria research and proceeded to work as a scientist at University of Basel in Switzerland. Since 2015, he has been a group leader at the Institute of Biophysics researching brain proteins. Misha is a regular, everyday, normal guy. Doesn't have a special skill. In the free time, he enjoys simple things in life, such as science, traveling the world, playing video games, interacting with ladies, and b-balling with his homeboys.
Good day, everybody. My name is Misha Kudryashev. It's my greatest pleasure to be the speaker at the second Shmed conference. The first time I've given this lecture was about my hope that we as a humanity will improve the living quality and the duration, and me as a 35-year-old person could live for as long as 100, 150 years or may never die. So that's amazing, but with this great idea, which may implement only partially, but we certainly are going to live longer, comes one of the other greatest challenges about which I want to talk today. This challenge is poverty. So poverty is actually one of the main risk factors for death, and we need to manage our personal finance very cautiously. And we do this while we're working because we get salary. However, when we stop working, we are gonna be in a little bit of a trouble. So the bad news, fellows, is that by the middle of the century, we will roughly double the number of people over 60 on our planet, and so we will also be one of those. This means that a younger generation will not be able to produce as much wealth to support themselves, growth, and also the older generation. And as a result, the old people, retired people, will get roughly half the money that they get today. And today it's not really they're not super wealthy today either. So I lived in countries like Germany and Switzerland and worked there. So the classical gold standard way to do this, to save for your retirement, is to put a little bit of money aside every month, and then this money I invested into bonds, and then these bonds accumulate interest over time, and you would then once you retire, you would start getting this money back. So my personal example is that I lived 6 years in Switzerland, and so over this time I've contributed 24,000 Swiss francs to my retirement. So this money I invested into very safe Swiss bonds, so they shouldn't they shouldn't be totally lost under no circumstances. But the problem is they also don't grow. So in 2018, from 24,000 Swiss francs, I made an interest of 12 Swiss francs, which is very little. A Swiss franc is something like $1, and I had to pay 36 Swiss francs as management fees. So not only I didn't increase my savings, but I also lost a little bit. So it looks like long term it's not a very good plan. But it's a potentially big problem. So I plan to work till maybe I'm 70, and then I'm maybe gonna live for another 30 years if I don't die from some stupid disease. So I've realized that we need to take control over our own finance in our hands, otherwise we're not going to make it that far. And so what works for me is I've saved a little bit of money also on the side. I don't spend that much money really, and I have a salary. I've been working for the last 14 years. So what works for me is an investment into the stocks of good American companies. So what you see on the screen on slide 5 is the price of this Standard & Poor's 500, which is a portfolio of 500 most valuable American companies. It updates, and so what you see is that roughly from 97 till 2019 it grew roughly threefold. It doesn't grow every year, it goes up and down. So on number of years, it actually may even drop However, there is a long-term trend that good companies that make great products and that are located in the States, this doesn't, well, you can also invest into other companies. So over long term, they actually give you consistent profit. And so if some of the companies will go bankrupt, then will be excluded from the Standard & Poor's index, and then the new companies would appear. So as a result, basically investing into the best companies of the world is investing into progress, and progress does tend to perform well. From 1950 is when the first recordings were made. The index has grown 150 times, so which is a significant overperformance over the inflation. So average annual return is 6 to 8%. Sometimes you lose money. Let's say I have lost roughly 10% of my money in the 2018. However, as you can see on the graph, overall, the money invested a long time ago have a tendency to grow. You also need to remember that you usually have an inflation of something like 1 to 2%, depends on the country where you live, and so average return, you need to think of return minus inflation and minus taxes. There is a large investment infrastructure, infrastructure around the investment that's called investment banks or investment advisors. They wear fancy suits and they tell you how to invest your money. I'm not one of them. I do wear a dress shirt, though. However, on a long run, if you look at the performance of the actively managed funds, where the experts buy and sell stocks maybe every day or every month, then on a long run, 95% of them actually perform worse than the just basically buying an index fund, buying a basket of stocks. So in order to justify their existence and paying for the expensive suits, they charge you a commission of 1 to 2%. So, and they underperform the market. So as a result, there is this notion that you shouldn't try to actively manage your funds, but and you should try to avoid those investment consultants if they have commissions. So what is accepted nowadays in on a slightly more conservative among the more conservative people in Europe and the States is to buy a so-called buy and hold strategy. So you buy, you have a fixed number of money that you invest every month, and then you buy this an index fund on every day, and then you don't sell it unless you really have to retire or have to make a big purchase, like maybe a house. And so basically over time you minimize your risk by buying another little piece of fund every month, and then this way you minimize the risk that you're getting, and over the time this seems to be the optimal strategy to invest. And it also takes away a lot of your personal effort, because if you have discipline, then you don't have to make a decision every time. A very important question: what if you don't have a lot of money to invest? Well, I didn't have a lot of money to invest, but then you realize that you kind of maybe don't need to buy a car every other year, or maybe you can cut down on some of your spending. And so if you cut down on the unnecessary expenses, which you really don't need, then you can save, I don't know, maybe $50, $100 every month. Maybe you can save $500 or $1,000, depends on how much you make. Of course, if you make more money, you could save more money, but that's not the point. Everybody has unnecessary expenses on which you can cut down. And so if you optimize your taxes, start spending in a smart way, then you actually have the opportunity to save a little bit of money, and then you can invest this money into the stock market. Don't use debt or leverage. It's a terrible idea, because your money do not go up as a straight line, and actually there are risks, but you need to pay the percent on your debt every year. So it's a terrible idea to borrow money to invest. In fact, if you do have debt you would rather want to pay it off before you start investing. Yeah, so be careful. What I've said today is still not an investment advice. You would still need to make responsible choices. And if you don't want to invest, I have slide 9 for you. You have other options. You can make kids, but by the time you'll be 100, they'll also be 60 or 70, and they'll be rather old. You can marry someone rich or move to a wealthy country where you work, and then move to a rather cheap country when you retire. One way or another, have a financial plan and do the numbers in advance. Thank you very much, and have a nice day and life.